She would like to thank Bill in her own way. Emma Amian.
Thanks, David. When I was a little girl growing up in California many years ago, my mother took me to museums, parks, concert halls, art galleries, and beautiful national and state parks. Many of these bore someone's name. I remember asking why places had names like the J. Paul Getty Museum, the Will Rogers State Historical Park, the Moran State Park and Forest, the Hearst Family San Simeon, and the Huntington Botanical Gardens and Library. My mother explained that folks who really cared about sharing their passion for art or nature or history gave these buildings, parks, beautiful gardens, and large forests to all of us as a gift. I recall thinking that these must have been very great people indeed. It never occurred to me that I would have the privilege of meeting one of those people. And yet today we celebrate such a person of greatness, Bill Fisher. He is a humble man and shy person who has resisted fanfare, as have many other such benefactors, but his overwhelming generosity is just too precious a thing not to celebrate. To give a special place, more than any other gift I know, is to give your heart. Mr. Fisher has given his spirit to this community through this gift of the land that he loves so much. That kind of generosity puts him on that lofty list with those men and women whose names I learned as a child. Bill Fisher has set an example that I hope others will follow. After all, it isn't so bad to be remembered for generations for your love of place, your generosity, and your willingness to share that which is the most precious to you. We can all follow in his footsteps, even only in a small way. We can give land, money, conservation easements, our time, and our talents to preserve as much of Vashon Island as possible. It's hard to find words to express our gratitude for such generosity, but both as a grateful citizen of Vashon Island and as president of the Vashon Park District Board, I'll keep it simple and say as others have before me. Thanks, Bill.
The dedication day was a real community affair. I think most of the community was there. There were a lot of people there. And it wasn't just to say, thank you, Bill, although that was part of it, but it was to say, hey, look what we've done as a group. I think there was a lot of community pride that day.
He had parsed this land together over time, and he had worked with his neighbors, and every time a parcel came up, he was just Johnny on the spot trying to get that piece of land. So he had put this pond together over multiple years, and he wasn't going to have anything harm it. Let's see, it was 1998, and there were a lot of people who owned land that lived off island, big pieces of land. And there was a waiting list for water shares. And so there was a lot of competition to be able to develop Vashon. And I think I know Bill had been approached by a number of big developers from off island who had even schematics that showed the pond with luxury homes around it. And that just made his limited crop of hair stand on end. He had a plan. And then we helped him make his plan permanent. And the Land Trust really did that. So I think it would be very different if jointly the Land Trust and Bill hadn't figured out how to do that. It's major.
For me, Bill Fisher taught us a couple of really critical things. One was that conservation on Vashon happens over a long time when you piece properties back together, and that's exactly what he did with Fisher Pond, and that's what we've done, you know, with all of our big projects. And it was a moment in the history of the Land Trust when our thinking just really changed. And then when we started thinking about watersheds, we realized, well, this is really the headwaters of Shingle Mill Creek, and Fern Cove is the estuary, and there's all this work in the middle. That was the project that started us thinking about watersheds. And then, you know, it was not just Shingle Mill, but then we started thinking about Judd Creek and how those two watersheds connected and could create a corridor all the way across the island. I think the other thing we learned from Bill is that when this community puts skin in the game, the state and the county and the other funders will come forward and support our work. When I joined the board, the pre-application to the state was ready, but we were gearing up for the real application, which is a presentation that you do down in Olympia. It was scheduled for August. And we were realizing that the match part of our proposal wasn't maybe as strong as it could be. We were asking for a bunch of people to donate conservation easements. It was a very difficult ask. It was a lot of moving parts. And, you know, Bill hadn't decided what he was going to do. This was, you know, April, May. We were looking at an August deadline. Bill's gift of Fisher Pond could be the big lever that opened up state money for the rest of the watershed. But we had to respect that it was his decision, and we just had to wait for Bill.
Dave Warren had a map of the watershed, but the map had not really been used for Bill. And I think there was a part of Bill that was really visual. It was suggested that Dave take the map down and just really not just talk to him. He needed to have that aha moment where he saw how important his land was.
I come to Fisher Pond some because well, it's just beautiful. You just look around us here, just the huckleberry. I just love the huckleberry and the sword ferns and the big trees, and the pond. So I love it for the nature, but I also love it for community. Maybe we should let him go down the trail.
Oh, Robert, he's back.
Thanks for waiting.
All right. He might get you running.
Take care. That's what this place is all about after all. Right.
Bye, Robert.
There's a guy in the former mayor of Columbia talked about the importance of parks and open space, and he said it's the one democratic space, you know, where everybody feels welcome, where nobody's asking you, what are you doing here? People just go and enjoy it on their own terms. And you get people from all walks of life, not people who can just afford to buy a lot of acreage, but it's space that's open and available to everybody. Some of the most amazing community events have happened here. I'll never forget the first time I came out, and it was one of those rare times where it was really cold on Vashon for several days, and I came out, and it was just so cool to look out and see ice all over the pond. And then I saw people ice skating, and I thought, what's this about? And I walked around, and I found these boxes full of ice skates, and found there was a couple on the island that had been saving up dozens and dozens and dozens of ice skates just so the rare times when the pond freezes over, they can make them available to the whole community.
And then the word got out, just the skates had arrived, you know. The skates were coming, or the skates, or the people who brought the skates.
You said earlier that the pond was kind of magical. Yes, it is magical. It is magic. Mm-hmm. I mean, we can't go out there and walk on the water today, but come next winter or the winter after, we'll be able to walk on that water. Mm-hmm. We'll be able to get down on hands and knees and stare through the ice to see what's under the water. I think two times ago, 4 years ago or whenever it was, we had really great air bubbles under the ice. The best I've ever seen anywhere.
It was just amazing.
Just spectacular. Works of art.
Amazing.
Works of art.
I mean, these little kids would skate for 5 minutes and then you just saw them flat on the ice, just flat out on their bellies. You know, but one of the wonderful things how it is growing is when the luminaries were put up this winter. I mean, my God, if that wasn't magical.
Oh.
There was 1,100 bags and people were silent, just silent. And we were walking in both directions. And many, you know, some people had headlamps or some people had little flashlights, but you know, I had a flashlight and this is turn that thing off, you know, because it was too much pollution. And so that's an example. Bill Fisher would have loved that. That was an amazing night.
I got a lot of what Bill's desires were for the property from Dave Warren and Jack Stewart. And I think they talked a lot about Bill's dreams and what he had hoped for the property. And I know there was a lot of kind of skepticism when we started to clear that 5 acres of Scotch broom and blackberry, and there was a lot of, you know, I don't think they can do it. I don't think they could, you know, reforest this parcel. And that was a fun project because we couldn't really identify the extent of, you know, what we had to do there, because you couldn't really get in because it was about 10 to 12 feet high, the Scotch broom and blackberry. So to get kind of a before picture, I climbed one of the big fir trees and took this picture of just the sea of Scotch broom, and it was Scotch broom and blackberry competing to kind of get the most light. Stewardship has gotten a lot more involved. We've gotten a lot more properties, and we've gotten a lot more properties that are unique and diverse. We no longer just have, you know, forest land. We have, you know, a lot of pasture land. We have, you know, a lot more waterfront, you know, creek, stream footage. We have a farm. We have, you know, there's just so many layers to the land trust stewardship now. That's the nice thing about the land trust, is that we're actually here and we're invested in all of these properties and all of these projects. So, you know, it's kind of the sweet thing is that we can always be coming back to do the maintenance and keep these projects successful. It's like every project, that corner of Bill's property is, you know, it's continuous. We'll be there for a long time, you know. We'll keep poking in and doing what we need to do. And, you know, right now we're still kind of working on the major, it's kind of like an infrastructure project. You put in all the big pieces, and then as that starts to develop, it starts to shade out all the invasives. It makes that process easier. And then you can start bringing in diversity and different shrub species and tree species, and it becomes easier the longer it goes.
The issue then was stewardship, but the issue now is so much more stewardship. And we, you know, if we have those responsibilities for those lands, that's an ongoing commitment. And for me, I think that's going to be the big challenge, is making sure that we can support the stewardship that's necessary for the lands that we either manage or own. And I think that's a lot of them now, so it's a big deal. Yeah.
I like to imagine Bill Fisher, wherever he is, looking down and being content and proud of how well the Land Trust has taken care of Fisher Pond. I think the plantings that have been done are flourishing, and the trail is such a blessing for so many of us to be able to walk it, and that the pieces that have been added on to extend the protection are remarkable. And I think Bill Fisher would be proud. I do.
Well, the night of the dedication, I remember sitting kind of like this next to Bill Fisher, and feeling this energy coming from him that was just pure happiness. And he had this childlike smile, he just radiated, I can't say joy because it wasn't a high energy, but it was just huge happiness that other people appreciated his life's work. And other people cared about this piece of land that he cared so much about.
Is the band here? Do we need the band? The band is coming. If you don't have the script, please get the words to the song. We're all going to sing a song now.
Hey, while we're gathering around here, Bill, I'd just like to say, you know, in the Native American Indian tradition, they make decisions that go for 7 generations whenever they make a decision, and I think your decision has gone for about 70 generations. So I'd like to thank you, and thank you for my children and my children's children. And one of the ways that the Land Trust thought it might be really nice to honor you, instead of just saying thanks, is to write and sing you a little song. So.
And maybe not, too, Bill.
Well, okay. We're going to give it a shot here. Oh, give me a home where the generous roam, and the deer and the herons all play, where often is heard a discouraging word. That's an encouraging word. Home, home on the rock, where today brown-bill fisher will flock. His vision was clear for the pond we hold dear, and a gift he has given to all. Give me a home where developers grown as the trees, they're healthy and tall, where people and beast share a visual feast that is void of a new shopping mall. Home, home on the rock, where today round-bill fisher will flock. In thanks for his gift, a magnificent lift, such a man an example to all. Give me a home where the generous roam, and the folks give their gifts large and small. Be it pennies or bucks, keep the pond filled with bucks, preserved for once and for all. Home, home on the rock, where today round-bill fisher will flock. So let's give a cheer for a man we hold dear, and the gift he has given to all.